You are watching Wide Field with Vivian Burchill. This is Wide Field.
Welcome to Whitefield. I'm Vivian Burchill, your host, and I'm hosting a team and panel from the Acton-Boxborough United Way to chat about the organization's work with racial justice. Welcome, everyone, and please introduce yourself and your role with the Acton-Boxborough United Way, starting with Grit.
I am Griet de Handschutter, and I am the Executive Director.
Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Collins, and I am the president of the board.
Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill O'Brien, and I am a board member. This is my second year.
Pubali.
Hi, I'm Pubali Banerjee, and I'm a board member. This is my first year.
Bert.
Hi, I'm Bert Ware. I am a new board member. I just started in September.
Prisha.
Hi, I'm Prisha Dayal, and I'm a student board member.
Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Bussy. I'm a board member first year, and I'm also the chair of our ID team, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism Action Team.
And finally, Katie.
I'm the Communications and Volunteer Engagement Manager here at Acton-Boxborough United Way.
Again, welcome all of you to Whitefield. Briefly, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you, and why are they important? Starting with Katie.
So to me, diversity, equity, and inclusion is about making sure everyone has a voice and feels that they are welcome in our tent.
All right, Pubali.
Diversity to me means representation of varied identities, be it differences in communication styles, thinking, or race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status. I think it is important that we seek to proactively engage and draw on a variety of unique perspectives, just so we can realize the value of the differences between us while affirming our similarities. And so, like Katie mentioned, it sort of levels the playing field for everybody. I think through inclusion, every person's voice adds value and emboldens the person in the community. And equity ensures fair treatment. So I think a community built on equity would foster respect and dignity for everybody.
Kara?
Since we moved here, I've been very much involved with celebration of the different cultures in our schools. And coming from Europe, I was so impressed with how wonderful our community is to embrace our diversity, to be proud about our heritage, to celebrate our differences and work together as one on other areas. And so I thought that we were doing really well here. I thought that racism and inequality that you see on TV and on the papers, that's more in the cities and in the rest of the country, but not here. And so when I heard that there's here locally in our towns, there's still a lot of microaggression, racism, inequality, the people are hurt by what we say, by our biases. I really want to learn more and to help share our learnings and to work all together to make this a better place for all.
Bert?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion for me, it's kind of an interesting confluence of things here because I actually deal with these issues professionally in my day job, apart from what I do here with the board. In practical terms, diversity, of course, is just making sure that we have the representation that's been suggested, that people who are part of our community are visible in the community. The inclusion aspect of it, I think, is all about making people feel welcome and making certain that their voices are heard. And the equity portion of it, I think, is perhaps the most challenging aspect because, we're, a fairly well-to-do town. We do okay for ourselves here. but we often lose sight of folks who might be struggling a little bit more, and folks who are dealing with trying to overcome some of the institutional and structural barriers to enjoy all the other things that people in Acton enjoy. And that's where the real challenge is around, I believe, the equity aspect of this.
Karen?
So for me, it is about wanting to see people and listen and understand and encourage and care and embrace. And so one thing that Carol said that really sticks with me is, you know, she used the word heard twice. You know, it's like hearing, and in order to hear, you have to want to listen. And in order to want to listen, you have to care. And so for me, it all stems from caring about the people around us, the people in our community, and wanting things to be good, fair, equal, comfortable, welcoming for everyone, just as much as I would want that for my children, I would want that for my neighbors.
For sure.
Yeah, so diversity to me is obviously, like everyone mentioned, having people from various backgrounds, various ages. And I think the reason why it's so important to me is because it teaches you empathy, and if you don't talk to a diverse set of people, then you don't learn how to deal with, you know, perspectives that are different from yours. And you kind of, when you're listening to people, you kind of learn about their struggles from them instead of, you know, voices, you know, these voices are suppressed. So if you're actively listening to them, you can learn about their struggles and be more empathetic. So that's why diversity is important to me.
And Jill?
So everyone else is so eloquent, and I have to be honest. When I first read it, the first word that pops into my head is not those three things, but the term respect. And I feel like without that one key part, the other things don't necessarily fall into place. So they become even more challenging and more difficult to address. Then later on, I'll tell you why that I think the word respect has come up a lot in my discussions outside of United Way in regards to the diversity in our community, the lack of equity in our community. And inclusion is a term I'm trained as a special needs teacher, and the term inclusion has been part of my repertoire as a human since I was like 18, since I started college. So for me, that term carries a different weight, and it's always involved a child or a child with special needs or someone that wasn't necessarily fitting into the cookie cutter. These are the children that are easier to teach. And those were my kids before I actually had physical children of my own. But the term respect, it goes even back to that without that one key thing, I think diversity is almost an impossibility to educate, because all someone has to do is go like this. And when you don't respect someone, you don't listen. So I think that's what came to my mind when the question was posed. I didn't just think specifically of those three things, but I thought back to the term respect. Without it, it's just an uphill climb.
And great, finally.
Well, I think a lot has been said, so I would say more on the why is it important to me. I believe that you come from a place of scarcity or from a place of love. And basically everything in life you can do is scarcity or love. And if you come from a place of love, then there is respect, and you can build a lovely community. If you come from a place of scarcity, it is us versus them. The pie is limited, and if other people come, they could take some of the pie away, and I'm going to lose out. It's competition instead of growing together. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's to me, ultimately, it's about love for mankind, love of belonging, love for each other, love for your neighbor.
Oh, thank you all. And great, while we still have you on the floor, virtual floor, why has United Way chosen equity, inclusivity, and diversity as a priority in its work? And how has the worldwide United Way's equity framework shaped ABUW's strategy on diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Acton-Boxborough United Way intentionally is part of the large worldwide United Way network with 1,800 United Ways in the US and many more outside. And wherever you are in the world, in whatever community, all these issues are essential if you basically want to build a caring, resilient neighbor community where people can thrive, where everyone can thrive, then you do need to work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think in the US, you have a particular history of, for African Americans, of, I would say, a struggle for 400 years to be heard and seen. And I think there is systemic racism. I think United Way realizes that too. But what I do love about the United Way is that wherever you are, in a small rural community or in other places, you can have United Way, because the idea is to be an open tent and bring people together and create platforms for discussions and deal with difficult, complex topics and try and move a community forward and be a trusted community leader. And that's what I hope that we can bring to this, that we can build on the leverage the resources from United Way, including this framework that they have created as one of the many tools in the toolbox that they give us to be better community builders. And so I hope that we can bring the equity framework and use it to bring people together and to have really deepen the conversation and get to action.
Yeah, one of the words that you have mentioned was community builders, and it's an interesting word, and it's a much needed service. Acton-Boxborough United Way's Week of Action brought the community together in acts of kindness, including serving ice cream to seniors, mobilizing the community to write letters to seniors, serving meals, mobilizing community to express solidarity towards racial justice, through Chalk the Walk for Racial Justice. So a question to each and everyone, to each of you. During Chalk the Walk Racial Justice event, many people created expressive art in West Acton. What image struck you the most and why? And I'll give each of you an opportunity to respond, starting with Katie.
So there was a lot of incredibly thought-provoking art at Chalk the Walk. For me, one of the squares that struck me was one that simply said, diversity is the engine of progress, which I think really gets at the heart of this whole movement. It's that if we're going to move forward, we have to move forward together. And so getting that inclusive tent where everyone can be heard and ideas can move forward is how we're going to make progress as a community.
Thank you, Katie. Pubali?
Yes, like Katie said, during Chalk the Walk event for racial justice, there were a lot of poignant images that caught my eye. And like Katie said, they were very thought-provoking. But the one that most stood out to me was the Let's Live United artwork. And I felt that this particular image actually encapsulated the central message of this racial justice movement. And I felt that at the heart of living united is the ability to see beyond ourselves so that we can begin to understand and work on common challenges and support others who face challenges that are different from our own. And living united in this community and working towards it will bring about positive change. And I feel that we're already on our way towards it.
Thank you, Pubali. Carol?
There were a lot of fabulous pictures down there. I love the picture, change starts here, within our hearts, within ourselves, because I think that's exactly where it starts. If we all really listen to the stories of people, if we ask the right questions, if we pay attention, we might find out that we ourselves maybe might be a bit more biased than we thought. We might find it hard to find the right words. when we see or hear microaggression or inequality or racism. So let's all do our best. Let's all work together. Let's listen and let's love our neighbors.
Thank you, Carol. Prisha?
My favorite image was one that said racial justice equals climate justice. And the reason it stood out to me was because it's not something that people really acknowledge and how intersectional these issues are. Because oftentimes racial minorities tend to live in areas that are disproportionately affected by climate change. And it also intersects with healthcare, how it's harder for these people to get access to health services. So they're already being affected by natural disasters, and they're also not able to get the services they need. So I think that just kind of broadened my worldview of like how connected these issues are, and how with racial justice, like climate change is also an existential issue. And if until we, you know, address both of these, we won't actually have any justice. So I think that image was really spoke to me.
Thank you, Prisha. Bert?
I didn't have a chance to actually go down for Chalk the Walk, but I did see photos of several of the pieces, and I was impressed by them. But the thing I think that impacted me most emotionally was, there's a photo, and I think it will probably come up, where you saw the young children actually doing this. And that was something that really gave me a lot of hope, because the current environment in the country right now really just can be incredibly dispiriting. And I have sort of gone through, you know, the swings of the pendulum back and forth, hopeful some days and less hopeful others. And to see that our young people are still optimistic about where we can be is really a remarkable thing. And seeing that they are, and that they took to heart this opportunity to really speak to some of these issues and to create the artwork that they did, I thought was really something commendable. I was very happy to see that.
Thank you, Bart. Jill?
Well, to sort of take off on that as well, Bert, one of my favorite was, there was a rainbow that said, love your neighbor. And then it showed like a bunny rabbit, and I couldn't even quite tell what the other animal was. But it was almost like the old Arthur, you know, the books that, and I loved that, you used to love that show, and that there were creatures that just, you know, they were just animals. They were all different, but they all somehow became friends. And I love the you know, kids are the base, like they're literally like the foundation of where we want to go. And I don't know too many people who would say that it's tougher to convince a child to love something. I mean, it could be a pen and they have to have it in the store. It's like this, like just this outpouring of adoration that they have. And I love that, you know, just as a community member, I love it to see that it's an innocence. And I would love to know, like, sort of, is it the fault of a community or parents or all the above, that when we start to see the negativity on TV, and you don't want to sort of alter that innocence and that love, like Greet was saying, that it comes from a place of just love. That's it. It doesn't even have to give anything back. So I loved the artwork by children, because to me, the whole event was getting to the base. And if we can get to the base, stay with the base, I think more of the people, the older you get, the more we have to keep looking back over our shoulder and making sure that we're the Pied Pipers. They're supposed to be following us. So maybe we should turn around and start following them. Like, look at their artwork, look at their innocence and their just pure devotion to, well, this is fun. You know, why wouldn't you like your neighbor? Who cares if they look like a rabbit or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, to use a childlike, you know, I just love it. That was my favorite.
Oh, thank you, Jill. And Karen?
I didn't have one favorite, but what I was struck by was themes. So the hands, there were so many hands drawn, and that to me is a really compelling image, because it's wanting, like when you love someone, I always want to hold my children's hands. You know, it's like I want to grasp onto it, and it shows caring, it shows support, it shows wanting to connect. And then the other theme was hearts, and again, that's just symbolizes, caring and love. And so for me, it was those themes that stood out. And I will say that if we do Chalk the Walk next year, for the seniors that can't bend down, my parents came out to watch and look, but they couldn't really participate because my mom said, if I go down, I'm not coming back up. So for the elderly with maybe sore knees, I think it would be great to do something on a wall, so that they can chalk also. So chalk that wall. Chalk that wall. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Karen. And finally, Greet.
I must build on the same theme of children. For me, it is more than one image. It was a hope to have families come out. And I must say, Vivian, to the photo of your two daughters, Amy and Zoe, just sitting reflectively, thinking about what they had just created lovingly together. There is such an intimacy, a warmth, but there's also these young children are understanding what is happening in the world. They are absorbing what is happening in the world. And the fact that your youngest daughter had understood from TV what is happening in the world and is afraid of thinking, is police a safe thing if you're Black, and then realizing that you are the Black member in the family and not your husband. And then that she writes, I love you, mommy, in this. It's a story that I'll never forget, that just melted my heart. And the thought that we as a community, if we don't care for these young kids, we can help make them love or hate one another. And I'm like, let's just embrace the love part. It just, so that to me, it was I was really glad to see many different families arrive. And it was a great start, but I absolutely hope we can do it again.
You're making me emotional right now. And yet I'm supposed to be hosting this. I kind of suspected you talk about that picture, and I don't know if I was ready for that emotionally, but no, it's great. That picture was one revealing moment for me as well, because I did not know what my kids were going to draw. I did not tell them to draw anything. I just told them that this is an event to tell the world that we should all love each other regardless of who we are and what we look like. And boom, before I knew it, my youngest was drawing a brown mother, a brown girl, woman, who is her mother, with BLM. Or when she asked me to spell Black Lives Matter, and I said, what? I asked her what she meant, and she's like, I just want to write Black Lives Matter. And I was curious. I said, why are you thinking about Black Lives Matter? Because Black Lives Matter. That's what she said. And I said, well, you can abbreviate it as BLM. So she put it in a bubble. And after that, I asked her, I pried a little farther. I'm like, why are you writing Black Lives Matter? And she said, because I saw the image of the policeman killing the Black man. And then I'm like, yeah, but not all police are like that. That was just on TV. But what we're saying is we need to love each other. I tried to kind of gear her away from the thought, the image of a policeman killing a Black person. And so that image of the brown girl was her mommy. And right next to it, she erased the the BLM word and put, mommy, I love you. And so it was harding for me, because I didn't want my baby to grow up thinking that the police are bad people. But in her little brain, she was 5. She thought, her mom is going to get hurt. And she is such an activist. She fearlessly protects her mother. So I guess I could also just add to say that we need, as a community, to come together to protect these young minds. It's not just up to us, people of color. We need to work together as a community, because sometimes we don't know. We can't. Yes, we can talk to our children, but if the whole community comes together and says it is okay, everybody's this, needs equal treatment, then they grow up in an environment where they know that their families are safe. So I wasn't gonna say anything, but I think it's a good moment to just talk about it briefly, which takes me right into the next question to each of you. What has been your biggest revelation since you started paying more attention to conversations on race? And what has been a teachable moment for you? Starting with Katie.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you for sharing. So for me, I think the hardest part to get over is it being okay not to know what to say, and to not be afraid to trip over my words and engage in the conversations and have those oops moments, but to keep having the difficult conversations. And I have 4 kids at home, and to realize that they are, as you said, so very aware of the news and the surroundings, but they're also very aware of nuance and get these big concepts in ways that I wouldn't have thought that they would have. And so to have these conversations with them, and to be very open with them that I'm not always going to say the right thing, and call out mommy if she's tripping over herself. But I think that's been my biggest revelation to date so far, is just to keep talking about it, to keep learning.
Jill?
So my biggest revelation was that I myself am not faultless, that I have so much to learn. So I too have a lot of kids to ask questions of, but I feel like the gift of being open to learning is where I want to stay. And my quick conversations, not just with my kids, because clearly they're not here, and having conversations with other people of varying ages and backgrounds, I'm learning that not everyone has that same mentality. So I'm trying, I think I probably have a mark on my tongue because I have a little bit of it every time I come up against like a wall. And I keep saying in my head, I'm like, don't stop. Like, I don't want to become that wall. I don't want to get angry at others who aren't at the same point that I'm at. But not everybody I know is. And that's it's a little disheartening for me, because obviously I know people because I'm friendly with them. So I have to keep like checking myself, that expression, like check yourself, check your mood, check your level of, and I'm like, just stay the course of being pliable. And, it's every bit of a learning experience. Every conversation is an opportunity to learn something. And I'm learning a lot about other people too. I guess that's what I'm getting at, not just about myself. So.
Thank you, Jill. Prisha?
Yeah, I think for me, so often, it's so hard, it's so easy to kind of get negative over these things because it feels like the future is bleak, and all these like systems like the government, the police, it seems like everyone is kind of against you in some ways. But I think I've realized how much young people are so aware and so open-minded, and that makes me really hopeful. Like my peers, like we got the mascot changed because we believed that it was racist and it didn't represent our school. And even younger kids like Vivian's kids who were left such heartfelt messages, people of all ages. I think it's a teachable moment how like even 5-year-olds are kind of able to accept differences and are able to stand up for themselves when they recognize that someone's getting discriminated based on how they look. And so I think that thinking about that really inspires me and keeps me motivated and keeps me hopeful that we'll be able to dismantle these like systems that are oppressing groups.
Thank you, Prisha. Actually, it reminds me, my older daughter drew a globe with different figures of different colors standing holding each other's hands. So just to speak to exactly what you're talking about, the young children. So anyway, thank you. Next we'll have Pubali.
Thank you, Vivian. I think the most important revelation for me was that for this process to work and for the diversity, equity, and inclusion to be infused into our culture and into the community foundation, I felt that what I realized was that as we had more conversations about this within United Way, we needed to be willingly able to reflect on our own assumptions, our unconscious biases, and have open dialogue and discussions. And often I found that some of these discussions were very emotional by nature and were difficult. But it was so amazing to find that when we shared these life experiences, there was an inherent building of trust. And I found that some of us came from, so many different backgrounds, but when we shared these life experiences, it sort of humanized all our feelings, and it led to it started the process of healing of the hurt. And previously, Carol has mentioned this word hurt. And so many of us are hurting today in this very charged national environment. And it has brought us great pain and anxiety. And I felt that beginning with the trust and authentic relationships right here helps to create a good environment to move forward with this initiative.
Thank you, Pubali. Bert?
I think for me, the biggest teachable moment, the biggest revelation is seeing how people, and myself included, and this theme has been spoken of, tend to have the immediate reaction to what they've heard. They sort of almost have a reflexive reaction to the types of issues that come up around diversity, equity, and inclusion, where if you slow down and just listen for a moment, you start to realize, okay, I hadn't quite thought of it that way. And maybe there is some merit to it. But more importantly, if you slow down and engage and have the conversation where you are inquisitive about learning, it gives you a chance to develop some empathy. And you may ultimately not agree. You may ultimately not be persuaded. But at the end of that conversation, at the end of that discussion, you will have learned something. And moreover, particularly given that we all live in the same community here, it gives you an opportunity to try and figure out, okay, maybe I disagree with what he or she said, but I'm trying to live harmoniously with these folks. I'm trying to be the person who, if I see your kid in the street and there's a car coming and the ball rolls out there, I pull your kid out of the way and you're thrilled that I did that and you do the same thing for me. And we don't sort of sit there and go, oh, well, that was the black guy, or that was the white guy, or that was the Latino, or the Asian. That just doesn't even cross your mind. You're a good neighbor. And when we start to slow down and have the conversations, I think we start to get to the point of, because we all want to live here and live harmoniously together and have a healthy community, it's a really good way of getting there. Just sort of slowing down and listening, not having the reflexive assumption that someone is pushing too hard. I mean, I'll give you an example from my own experience. Years ago, I went through some diversity training, and I was convinced when I walked in the room that I had it down in terms of particular issues. And as we went through talking about issues of race, talking about issues of gender, issues about sexuality, I had a number of aha moments where it was like, oh, gee, I had not realized that I was carrying that baggage. And that baggage was not something I need to beat myself up over, because it's just the nature of living in America, unfortunately. There was a reference earlier, someone said, this has been going on for 400 years for African Americans, people of African descent here. It has. And, for people now to sort of beat themselves up over it really doesn't, it's not a constructive approach. But being aware of it and trying to make sure that it doesn't, that the structures that are out there, that the stereotypes that are floating around out there don't control how you interact with and think about your interactions with people going forward. That's a really big step toward trying to make sure you have a healthy community. So that was kind of a teachable moment, recognizing that there's almost this reflexive impulse that a lot of folks have. And it can be incredibly disappointing and disheartening. But when you get people to slow down and listen and be willing to learn, you get that inquisitive learning thing going on, and you can actually be a better person at the end of the day as a consequence.
Thank you, Bert. Next we have Karen.
So what's interesting is I have a very similar response to Bert's, and what's been eye-opening for me is that it's given me a reason to pause, and in the pause comes a chance to reflect, and reflection leads to questions, and the questions lead to self-awareness. And for me, it is, I believe sort of throughout life that without self-awareness, it's really tricky to grow. And from a place of self-awareness, at least there's the ability to look in the mirror and evaluate and make it. We all have choices. We can all choose what to say. We can all choose to ask if we could do something differently. We can all choose to say to ourselves, did I handle that well? Should I apologize? And so it starts with the pause for me, and then it sort of trickles into, or not even trickles, it goes really quickly actually. It's like a full-on waterfall right to self-awareness. What am I doing, and what can I do differently? And I will say that with the self-awareness comes wanting to have and engage in more conversations. And one of my friends who's on my Pan Mass Challenge team is heavily involved in racial equality, justice. And one thing that he said to me, he said, if you see something, say something. And that will stay with me forever. And it's been challenging to hold myself up to that standard. And it has been uncomfortable to know who I want to be and actually getting there and taking the action. So that's the other thing. It's like there are words saying that I want to be better, I want to do better, and then supporting actions. And my goal is to have those dots not be dots, but just part of central to who I am. And I think that for United Way, my hope is that the work that we're doing and the focus and energy we're putting towards this can have the impact of centralizing these really tricky, difficult, painful, awkward conversations and discussions, and create a safe place where we can all look in the mirror and say, can I do something different? Can I do it differently tomorrow so that I can do better? So
thank you, Karen. Greet.
I would say one aha moment was for me my interaction with our dear Bill Ray from Acton Coffee House, when I contacted him when he said, well, I love Chalk the Walk as long as you don't trivialize. And I said, oh, no, I don't. Or I wrote, I said, I don't intend to trivialize. And then I spoke to our young adult son, and he says, Mom, you as a white woman can't say to a black business owner that you don't trivialize. You should ask the person who asks not that it's not being trivialized, what is trivializing? And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. So it is, I would say, what others have said, a learning process, saying oops and ouch. I think, but my son also said, Mom, I'm proud of you. You're working at it, you're trying, because I decided to call Bill, and then he said, what I would like to add to Chalk the Walk is History Matters posters. And just an aha moment was this History Matters. And when he showed the posters, it was basically a history of systematic racism facts in the United States. And I'm like, wow, it's kind of not what you learn in the history books, but these are all facts. And it showed to me so much the different lenses one can have to and or blinders. And when Bill then presented the pain that he said, the effort he had taken to put this together, and the hurt, as I must say, the hurt of the grown men and women to just feel all that pain. And then I'm thinking, man, I'm just feeling the pain now, but they felt much longer and much more fear. I don't fear that my son wears a hoodie, what clothes he's wearing, whether he's shaven when he goes to the airport, that they would be taken for a Muslim, or if he wears a hoodie in the South or wherever, he could be unsafe, or in the car if he's stopped by the police. And I'm like, I never had to think about all these things. So for me, an enormous amount of aha moments, but I'm very grateful for people like Bill Ray, who took the time to explain, to put things together, and to really help. And I'm reading like crazy books by Black authors to try and learn history, learn different perspectives, learn different ways of being together as a community in a family. And what I find very interesting is that very often you learn about, if you think about different families, it's not just families of color, but it's also queer families and queer love. And I'm like, I had never, as a white person, thought about that intersectionality. And I'm like, actually, it makes sense, because you need to create your family, or you can create your family. And I find it a beautiful, beautiful concept. And this is right now one of my favorite books, Always Show Up by Mia Bergson.
Thank you, great. And then Carol, finally.
I've learned so much already over all of the different conversations that we've had and everything that we've heard. Two big things. The way to go is still way longer than I had expected. There's so much work to do. And even right here in our community, that was a huge aha moment for me. There's still so much pain, and still every day now, there's more pain being done. And then the second aha moment is what others said as well. We need to start looking within ourselves. I'm probably more biased than I had anticipated. I'll probably also look for my words and maybe not dare to speak up if I witness something. So a lot of work to do, also within ourselves.
Thank you all. One recurring theme that I've heard is we need to do a lot, as a community, and especially I speak as a person with young children. We need help to support these children. We can't do it by ourselves when it comes to kids understanding that families where they have parents who are disadvantaged, and I try not to use that word, but in terms of racial justice, for the kids to feel that it is okay, so they don't have to worry about their mommies. All hope is not lost, and especially with a group like this, this is an appeal. We need help to work together, to not for us, because right now I think we are already older, but for our younger generation, so that they don't have to experience so much pain growing up. Which ties me into the next question. I mean, Bart talked about slowing down, engaging, and having conversation, which was a similar theme for Karen, posing and reflection and having conversations, and which is also what all of us to a degree have been talking about. So what I think this will go to Carol. What is the plan for mobilizing our community to work together toward equity, inclusivity, and diversity?
Yeah, these conversations are so important, and that's what we hope that Chalk the Walk has started. Conversations amongst people about the messages they read, about the topic, about race, inequality, inclusion, and we hope that these conversations will continue. Action starts within ourselves as well. The more we all hear about what people are experiencing or witnessing locally, the more we can understand, the more we can change our own biases as well, and the way we talk or the way we act. And we can learn as well to speak up when we see something. And so one of the things that we are starting together with other local organizations is to gather written stories of race, of racism, of what people have experienced, and we will share them with the public. More information will be coming on our website. And so if you have experienced or you will witness somebody being treated differently because of the color of their skin, or have another story to share, let us know. We also hope that several people will also want to come talk about their experiences in one of the next episodes of this show around racial justice. So if you're interested in either of them, send us an email at abuw@abuw.org. And again, you will find more information on our website and on social media soon. We also want to use the power of Acton-Boxborough United Way to convene with the many different groups working on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here locally in our towns, there are several groups working on this. And so we want to create synergies so we can amplify our impact. We can achieve so much more if we work together. And we will combine all of the information that we will receive together with other data points from the census or from other data sources, and everything that we learn in our strategic planning session, that process that we plan for the spring, to lay out actionable ways to move our community forward for the next few years, so that we can make Acton and Boxborough a better place to live for all our neighbors.
Thank you, Kara. And with that, I will ask our final question for this session, which is to each of you. What is your final message to our viewers on diversity, equity, and inclusion, starting with Bali?
I was just, as I was listening to all of you here, I realized that actually this is not a simple task, and I 100% agree with all of you. I mean, there is no clear, obvious path with a practical template or a defined outline that will tell us how to move forward. But I think, as each of you have pointed out, there are some really integrated steps that we can take to build on this process as we embark on it. And as Karen mentioned, and as Greet mentioned, meet people where they are. I mean, keep yourself open to listening to them. Recognize that history does matter, and model your behavior, and then support it, because inaction gives an implicit permission to the person beside you to not embrace this change. So show your demonstrated commitment. And I think we have all been doing that. We've been trying to build a learning culture. We've been talking about it. We've been having honest discussions. So I think all of this process requires personal responsibility as well as leadership and key nuanced relationship conversations and a host of other variables. It's going to be a long process. It's going to take patience and it's going to take resilience. But I feel that this community and us in United Way, we're on our way.
Thank you, Pubali. Jill?
So along those same lines, I think if we continue to kind of circle back and fall back to one another, like this is sort of, we know where to go to reach our, to tap into the positivity of the, where the Pied Piper follow us. And every time we get sort of knocked down or feel as though maybe we're not making the strides or we didn't behave or say something that we thought of afterwards, I think everyone does that. Oh, I should have said, or I wish I had done this. Not all those steps are like 3 steps back. I think with every maybe a misstep or just a missed opportunity, if we can kind of circle back and talk with and support one another, or go back to the people that you consider to be your support people, talk to them and then start the process again of let's improve. Every day is an opportunity for improvement, and this is no different. The whole idea is it's not lost.
Thank you, Jill. Prisha?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Pabali said, that there isn't a clear way that, we can end racism. Like, obviously that's not how it works, but I think it's like what we're doing right now, listening to everyone and their experiences. Like, you learn so much from that, as well as, reading authors, from different minority groups. I think that's important as well. I think like the main thing to remember is often, when people are engaging in this, they kind of think that, posting something that says something like, I can see you, I hear you, something inspirational like that. I think that's a good sentiment, but you have to go beyond that to like actually engage with people are racist and like see what they're thinking and try to change their perspective, as well as continue educating yourself. So I think the main thing to remember is that you have to be actively like dismantling racism. You can't just post sentiments that are related to being inclusive. You have to actually take action. So that's what I would say to everyone.
Thank you, Prisha. Bart?
Thanks, Vivian. What I would say to folks as sort of a parting thought here is this is hard work. This is hard work for everybody involved, for the folks who are on the wrong side of that seesaw, as well as the folks who are on the right side of that seesaw, the folks who are called upon to sort of answer the questions. It can get incredibly tiring to explain to people why that's problematic, why that's something that ought not be said, why that's a perspective, a stereotype about someone that ought not be followed. But at the same time, you have to bear in mind that there really aren't any quick solutions to any of this. This is a lifelong exercise. As I said earlier, when I went through some of the training years ago, probably 15, 20 years ago, at my employer, that was eye-opening, and ever since then, it has continued to be. And part of the exercise of getting better each and every day, as Joe was saying, is that you got to work at it. And more importantly, so that you can kind of build community and trust, is if people see you working at it, showing your work for folks so that they see, okay, he's really trying to get this, or she's really working at it. They are much more willing to help pull you along, and you're much more willing to help pull them along as well. I mean, there are a couple of things that kind of go beyond the showing your work aspect of it. And that is, people sort of find themselves stuck because they think, gee, what can I do? I'm not sure what I can do. What difference can I make? Well, there's a span of control of things that you can influence. And if you take those small steps, that's the beginning to show your work. And if you do that, you can take bigger steps. And trust me, it can become self-sustaining. It builds its own inertia, its own momentum, and you'll be surprised, and it will be fulfilling for you as well. So, that's kind of where I want to leave folks. It's a lifelong exercise. You work at it each and every day. You're trying to get better each and every day, and we'll get there, or our kids will get there, hopefully.
Thank you, Bart. Katie?
Thank you, Bart. I think I want to leave people with this is your invitation. If nobody has said, come along on this journey with you before, here we are. The United Way wants to bring the community along on this journey. When the staff came together to chalk the walk for racial justice, we wrote time to listen, time to learn. And that really was an invitation to the community to come along with us. So I do hope that you will, and you'll invite someone who's not self-inclined to watch these videos. I worry sometimes that this is an echo chamber. So talk to a neighbor, let them know to check out Wide Field and to come along on this journey with us too.
Thank you, Katie. Karen, and then Grit.
First of all, I just want to thank you, Vivian, for teaching me personally about how I can do things differently, and for modeling for me and for so many people on the board what it looks like to stand up and take action. I'm truly grateful for you and that our paths have crossed. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I think that my final message is be like Vivian, So
well, to be fair, it's not your final message, but just for this show, there'll be other messages.
Yes. Okay. So anyway, so thank you. My message is open heart, open mind. And for me, I just would encourage people to give each other the space to try things out, and trust that someone is coming from a place of good intentions, and they may just not fully know what to do or how to do it. And instead of being judgmental, be a helper and be a role model. And when I think it was Carol was saying about needing leaders, I wrote that down pretty much as she was saying it. We need model leaders, citizens who are able to show others how to try something and how to walk into discomfort and emerge strong, everyone's stronger. So that's my message. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Great.
I would say diversity is beautiful, and I really believe that from the bottom of my heart. And so there is such an opportunity here to come together and to step forward and be curious and wonder. And I myself have sometimes a tough time to not judge, and but not being afraid to engage in a conversation, just dare to make that step, dare to make that connection, listen. And even if you don't know the answer, it's okay. And you can come back and you can continue the conversation. So one person asked me, basically people who say all that racial justice, you don't really want to have a conversation, you just want to change my mind. And I really thought about that, and I'm like, that was actually a very thoughtful question. What do I want out of a conversation? And then I thought, what has happened? A year ago, we didn't have that conversation with that person on this topic. And this year, we are at the moment of raising already that subject. And next year, will tell you where we are then. But I hope and I think that we're going to be moving forward. So come on, join. And Vivian, thank you. Thank you for really your courage, your leadership, and your inspiration you give to the entire community. And so glad you are on the board of Acton-Boxborough United Way.
Well, thank you. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't have these opportunities to engage if it wasn't for your willingness to have these conversations. So I have many hearts right now. As an Acton resident, I say thank you to Acton-Boxborough United Way. As a mother, I say thank you for working toward education, mental health, and financial inclusivity for the disadvantaged people. As a member of Acton-Boxborough United Way, I say it is an honor to serve with each and every one of you. And as a host, for Whitefield host, I say thank you for honoring my invitation to be on the show. And to our viewers, you can watch our Whitefield episodes on the Acton YouTube channel. You can also write to the Acton-Boxborough United Way with your thoughts, or if you want to engage, at the email below. Thank you for watching Whitefield. Till next time.